Well, no, I just appreciate you being here. I'm up in the area today listening to voters, meeting with a number of people. I was in Porterville this morning doing a groundbreaking, something we've been working on for quite some time, the spillway for Lake Success at the raising the dam. One is for the protection of everybody down below, but more importantly, we can store more water, which is one of the key issues I'm working on in this for California, especially for the Central Valley. Just met with a number of members who are running for office in California as well. I wanted to sit down and answer some questions with all of you too. So, fire away.
Do you have a prediction of what you think the Republicans will gain?
Well, I think Republicans will win the majority for a number of different reasons. One is we've never had inflation like this in 41 years, and Republicans had warned the Democrats not to do the American Rescue Plan, spending that $2 trillion. And it wasn't just Republicans who had warned them. I mean, former Secretary of Treasury Larry Summers told them it'd be inflation. Even Ratner, the advisor to Obama, calls it the original sin of inflation. And then we watch what they have done. They just doubled down again. The sad part here is here we have the highest inflation we had in 40 years. We've got Democrats defunding the police and crime continuing to rise. We've got a border that's unsecure, that now fentanyl is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. We've got a Department of Justice that goes after parents when they want to attend their own kids' school boards meetings. And they have no plan to fix it. Republicans do. We have a commitment to America. They'll make us energy independent, lower our gas prices. We'll be able to give parents a Bill of Rights. They have a say in their kids' education. We'll no longer defund the police. We'll fund the police, and we'll make sure DAs uphold the law. We're going to bring the supply chain back from China, create manufacturing jobs here in America. I just don't believe Americans want to go down the same path and the pain that they're feeling right now.
Do you have a specific number of how many seats you think they'll pick up?
Enough seats that we have the majority, but we're going to compete in every seat across the country.
When you look at 2 California seats, one being 22 and the new Congressional District 13, you got a new candidate there in John Duarte, the farmer. And then you got David Valadao, one who was one of the 10 that impeached Donald Trump as a Republican. Do you feel like you're going to have trouble trying to get those seats to be red and then turn one red?
No, I think both of them are going to get. David's going to get reelected, and John Duarte is going to get elected. A small business owner, a nursery owner that understands what it takes to run a company in California, the challenges, watching a country change before his eyes, knowing the importance of water. I mean, even when you look at the primary where California has the top 2 and everybody can vote, John Duarte came out on top above Adam Gray when here's a man that's been in office for a long time, but has been voting for a lot of those punishment of bills going through. California was our very best state in Congress last election, where we picked up 4 seats: Young Kim, David Valadao, Michelle Steele, and Mike Garcia. Very competitive seats, but I think there are more seats in California we can win. We're 4 seats away from the majority, but I believe we can win in Rhode Island, in Maine, in Oregon, in Nevada, in Ohio, in North Carolina, and Florida as well. But California is going to be a good state for us. I mean, just think of what California's Democratic policies have done. The crime continued to rise. You've got inflation, and for anybody in California, especially in the Central Valley, the #1 question they should be asked: could you afford to give up 1 month's salary? I believe everyone would say no, they can't. But that is what's been taken from them. That's what's been taken from them by the Democrats in causing inflation. 1 month's salary is 8.3%. Inflation is higher than that. You've got gasoline that you can't afford. You've got real challenges going on. All of that can change.
I wanted to get your thoughts on today. We finally seen what we thought would be the affidavit of the FBI search into the former president's Mar-a-Lago estate. It was heavily redacted. I wanted to get your thoughts on what we're seeing as this transpires and this all plays out in front of voters and in front of the midterm.
Look, I think the most important questions on the midterm are going to be economic questions. But what we have found by the DOJ raiding a former president's house has never happened before. And now the American public deserves a right to know. I think you erode confidence in secrecy. And you never want in America where somebody uses a Department of Justice for political reasons. it would be sad to say, especially what we had gone down for a number of years, when what would happen in the Russian hoax and others, that people would use articles that are written to somehow go to this level. So I think you should remove almost everything else, protect individuals' names, but tell us why would you go to a level you've never had before. And now it raises a whole nother set of questions at the beginning where the White House says they didn't know, and now questions arise that maybe they did.
Do you think personally this came from the White House
I don't-
to get the Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, to go try to get a search warrant?
I don't have enough information to answer that question completely, but it raises a lot of questions. Never before in American history have we ever gone that far. But Merrick Garland, we see just as being Attorney General, went after parents who went to a school board meeting. We found out later an orchestrated letter that an organization actually took back that they utilized to do it. So I think in these type of situations like this is why you shouldn't have secrecy. This is why more transparency so the American public can understand that. And one thing about America, we believe in fair rule of law. Is this how other cases such as this have been treated before? That raises real concerns, and especially where we are in a country today. We would want to make sure not to raise attention or anger to one another. Let's treat everybody fairly. So there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered.
Where's the Republican Party in their messaging right now? A lot of people say, you know, it's either a Trump message or it's an unknown message, and the message that a lot of different Republicans, including John Duarte, who I just talked to this week, even said, hey, I'm not with one personality or another personality, I'm just campaigning. No one wants to seem to align themselves with Trump. Are you bothered by that?
No, I mean, when you look to campaigns, people run in their districts. They listen to their districts. But most importantly, when you go across the country, is there a unifying message that Republicans are talking about if they were given the opportunity to become the majority? They're very clear about that. We'll get our fiscal house in order. We will lower the gas price. We'll become energy independent, so you're not paying $4 and $5 a gallon of gas, which will actually lower inflation. We will give parents a parent's bill of rights so they know what's happening in their kids' education and they'll have a say in it. We'll make sure that we stop this role that's happening on our border, that we will secure our border, that no longer fentanyl will become the #1 killer between the ages of 18 and 45 Americans. We'll make sure that the terrorists that are coming across that are on the terrorist watch list will no longer have a free reign in there. We will bring the supply chain back from China into America, building a manufacturing base here. We will bring accountability back into these agencies and others where we have a say. We will look at where the origins of COVID originated from. We have not had a hearing about that. I think when you're looking at to where America's looking right now, they want to feel better about their economy. They don't want to have to keep paying and their prices keep rising.
You know,
where do you see the messaging on abortion in the November election? I know you haven't mentioned that yet. We saw that it's been issued in some of the special elections in New York. How do you see that playing out in November?
Well, abortion was pushed back to the states. I don't see anything changing in California. Didn't see something changing in New York as either. What the Supreme Court said is it went back to the locals to make those decisions.
So for candidates who are pro-choice, seem to be doing better, at least in the recent special elections since the decision came out in June. So where do you go for that?
Well, I mean, you're equating to one seat in New York that was already a Democrat seat that kept. I believe people were talking about the issue of where they stand on it. And the one thing I think that you hear from most people, the #1 issue they have is the economy. They're concerned about their money does not go as far. You've watched study after study. 20 million Americans are behind on their energy bills, and they watch a winter coming and they can't afford to be able to pay more. They had a month's salary taken from them. They're concerned about their streets and their schools being safe because of the defunding of the police, the election of liberal DAs who won't uphold the law. I think those are the issues that are driving the most that I'm finding in these races.
Yeah, I want to get to the
You obviously
January
have some
6th
young,
hearing.
hold on a second. You obviously have some young people here. Can you talk a little about what's happening with student debt?
Well, as we watch the student debt, the real concern here is we're finding the president just said $1 trillion, it's estimated from another modeling that it will cost. Where does that money come from? Are you going to have to raise more taxes? Everyone talks about that. It's going to create more inflation. So what these young people want is to have an education they can afford. But they also want to have an economy they can get a job in and inflation not to continue to rise. So what we really need to start looking at is the schools themselves. I think the universities need to have skin in the game, because they can't keep raising the price. They've got to be able to get a return on their investment for their education. And I think that's a different way to look at it.
Follow up on that, any chance you and the Republican Party are gonna try to block any of this that's going on?
Well, I think there's a real question here. Does the president have the authority to do it? I don't believe, and it's not just myself who doesn't believe that. Nancy Pelosi said that last year as Speaker of the House, that the president does not have the authority just to wipe away somebody's college education. Now, the next question will rise is, who's going to pay for it? There's going to be a lot of people who maybe didn't go to college that are paying for somebody else's college as well. It's just like anything else. If you sign a piece of paper with a promise of what you're going to pay based upon a product you're going to be given, I think you should follow through and pay it.
The way I understand it, I could be wrong, he's trying to push it through the 2003 HEROES Act. It was meant for military and during wartime, for those who couldn't pay their educational aid at that time. And it's during a national emergency as well. Through that definition, does he have the right to do it? I
don't believe that would uphold in court. Are we in a national disaster right now where unemployment is this low? Are we all wearing masks while we're sitting here? That question is no longer. When that emergency bill was passed through, it was during the pandemic. And then during that pandemic, we just waived, people still had the responsibility to pay, we just waived the interest rates from going right now to people got to a different position.
Now, if the Republicans take over and become in the majority in January, do you plan investigations of President Biden and his administration? And if so, what investigations would you like to take a look at?
If Republicans are fortunate enough to take the majority, the very first thing we're going to do is lower your gas price. We're going to make America energy independent again. We're going to lower the gasoline price. We're going to make sure that we're going to lower this inflation, that when you go to the grocery store every day, it's not going to cost more. We're going to make your streets safe again. We're going to give your parents a say in your kids' education. But we're also going to hold government accountable. We want to know where the origins of COVID started. This is the 1-year anniversary of 13 new Gold Star families in America. Who made that decision? Why did that decision take place that you left Bagram, where you had a suicide bomber come out and kill those Americans? I think we should understand, how did that happen so it never happens again? I think we want to see, why did the Department of Justice look and go after parents and call them terrorists simply because they wanted to know what was happening in their kids' education by going to a school board meeting? There's a responsibility in Congress, regardless of who's in the White House, to have a check and balance. There's a number of agencies we would like to be able to see what is going on and bring transparency to it.
For you, Congressman, you're
a Dodger fan. I like that.
Yes.
They're pretty hot right now.
Yes, they are. Obviously, you're speaking to a new constituency if you were to win. There have been complaints in the past that the previous member that represented this district really kind of forgot about the northern part. Was never seen, was never around in Clovis, was always stuck down to Tulare County. As Congressman, how will it be different with you?
Well, everybody has to run and earn the support. I don't assume people just give me support. I want to earn your support. So I'm here to listen to you first and foremost, to have a better understanding of areas that I don't know. Every 10 years they redistrict. They drew this district that was much larger and much longer. It goes from Clovis down to the southern end of Bakersfield. There are some commonalities when it comes to the Central Valley, from our agricultural background, from our upbringing and others of hard work ethics, from the challenges of the Central Valley. I do know those issues as well, but the first and foremost, I don't assume that I know them all. What I do want to know, regardless of your party, what are your concerns? How can I better serve you? We might disagree at times on issues, but I want to be forthright to you to understand where I come from. I'm going to make the decisions based upon principle, but I want to listen to what's best for the valley. I know water is a critical issue. This is something I work on great. It determines what happens in the valley. Lots of times the valley does not get their voice. We pay higher when it comes to electrical costs based upon our heat here. I think that's wrong in the basis. We want to make sure we bring economic growth, new manufacturing, and others. And those are things that I will work on. We want our very best schools because we want our kids, just like right behind me, to be able to work here, live here, and continue to grow here.
How much do you know your opponent?
Um,
And are you fearful at all? I know you got a big war chest, you don't have to remind us, but
I don't worry about the war chest. Look, no matter who runs against, it should be the power of the idea. It doesn't matter if someone's running against me or somebody is not. I'm still going to go out, knock on doors, listen to what the concerns are. It makes me a better member. Every 2 years in this country, people loan their voice to their representative. I have a responsibility to hear that voice and represent them. And the only way I can do that is by showing up. You'll know at times and again, I put a headquarters here so people know where to come to ask questions. I come up here. I've got a job that I got to do, but I'm going to be here as often as I can and in different times and in different locations. Every time doesn't have to be a set event. Just going and being a part of the community and absorbing it, I believe I will learn a great deal as well.
Yes.
And the only thing I ask is give me an opportunity to earn your vote.
Do you have specifics on what you can do to help with the water issue?
Yeah, if you watched my congressional career, I was able to work with Dianne Feinstein and get the WIN Act. That was the biggest water legislation ever passed in the last 25 years. The thing I really look at, and I just left this morning, having worked on since 2013, the raising of the dam in Lake Success, the Schaefer Dam. We need greater storage. We've been saying that for quite some time. Been able to work through and get a different biological opinion to be able to have more water flow down through in a more efficient manner. I think at this moment in time, it's not just storage we need more resources of water. We should start looking at desals. I have traveled to Israel and met with them on numerous times of the desal plants that they have ability. We need a greater source of water at the same time, but we should not be wasting our water out to the ocean. I've fought hard to raise Shasta Dam. That is your greatest return on the investment for being able to. I've worked hard trying to work with this governor. Unfortunately, this governor has fought us a great deal when it comes to water storage. Now he sees the penalties. The dam that I worked on this morning has been worked on for 30 years of someone looking to the future to have storage. We cannot wait that long to be able to make that happen again.
you know, you're once again campaigning, as you said, you got the new constituents, you want to hear from them. I think a lot of constituents are asking, what's your relationship with the former president at this time? You know, there's been many reports, right? You read them. And I think that they're wondering, will you bring the former president here with you to help stump for this new congressional district?
Look, I talk to the former president quite often, just talked to him yesterday. I work with everybody, and in this district, unfortunately, I think I can win this, and I would utilize his strength in other places. I don't think we need it in this district. But the one thing I would say, I brought the president to the Valley as he was president, and I like to bring other elected officials because I want the Valley to have a voice and a seat at the table, and that's what I continue to fight for.
Yesterday, the California Air Board, in essence, going to be banning gasoline-powered cars starting 2035. What do you think about that policy, and what do you think that policy could go nationwide?
I think that policy is bad and stupid. I think that policy only harms people for the standpoint that government is going to dictate what you can buy. Here we are with people with that like-mind opinion that they know best and want to control all. They have now raised our price of living. When the gasoline price topped $5 and they asked the president about that, he said that's a good thing because now people will be forced to drive electric cars. When you've already lost 1 month's salary because of the Democratic policies, they're now going to tell you you have to buy a new car that's more expensive, that you don't have a choice. When we look in the Valley of what we have to do here, that we work with our land and others, is an electric truck really going to work when it comes to tilling the farmland? Or is it really going to work if that's our only choice when we're moving dirt or drilling for oil or natural gas or building a solar facility? Why do they take away options? Why do they take away choice? I believe in America you should have a choice. In California, I believe, I might get the number wrong, 12 or 16% are right now electric cars. If you're going to mandate that everybody has to have an electric car, do we even have the infrastructure for that charging facility? This governor now is closing one of our nuclear facilities, Diablo, that's 10% of PG&E's electrical capacity. Are we now putting ourselves into more brownouts? We already pay 40% higher than other states because of the mandates with the same philosophy, instead of looking at all the above. I'm an individual that believes that people can make their own choice. You can have an electric car, but do you have to mandate for somebody to buy it? Why can't you have a choice? And if I'm going to have to work with the land and others, why do I have to be at a disadvantage to live in California? Maybe that's why we're losing a population. Maybe if we were a little freer and trust people to have their own choices, maybe it wouldn't cost as much to live here and people would choose to stay here.
January 6 hearings, they're going to start up pretty soon again. You've been very outspoken about that. There's a lot of talk that the former Vice President Mike Pence could testify. What do you make of that, and do you think he should?
Look, I think what happened on January 6th was wrong, but I think the way about that this committee is not a legitimate committee. It's the first time in congressional history the minority didn't get a right to offer anybody for it. It's the first time in history that the Speaker, when selecting who was chair of it, actually voted to challenge the election of Bush. It's the first time that you had a chairman say, we'll look at everything except the Speaker of the House. It's a pure political committee designed to play politics, and I think that's wrong. Right now, we're living through the highest inflation in 41 years. Americans have just lost 1 month's salary. Every time they go to the grocery store, it costs more. They have to make a decision whether they can fill up their gas tank. And they're hurting. And all Democrats have no plan to fix it but to spend more money and to play more politics. That will all change with a new direction and a new plan that the Republicans have about a commitment to America. Well, we'll lower your gas price. We will lower inflation. We will make sure that we secure this border and end fentanyl from coming across. You'll have a say in your kids' education, and we will end the commitment and the supply chain from China and bring it back to America.
I know you said you just talked with the former president. You said you almost talked to him daily, maybe frequently. Without stealing his thunder, everybody thinks he's going to make the big announcement and do it soon. What's your level of confidence that he will run for the nomination once it gets to the Republican Party?
Look, I don't know that he's made that decision yet or not. The decision, when I talked to him, his commitment is to help Republicans win in November, and that's what his focus has been on. I think he'll make that decision after the election and whether it's best for him to run or not, and it's always up to the candidate themselves to decide.
What's your gut telling you, though?
My gut tells me he hasn't made it. I mean, anyone that wants to decide whether President Trump's, what his gut feeling is never going to be right. You may give him some advice, but he makes his own decisions in life.
Probably only a couple more questions, guys.
What was your reaction to TJ Cox getting indicted last week?
What took so long? I always wondered why, from a standpoint, I never did much with him in Congress because I always felt there was something just not right with him. And I watched and listened from people in the Valley how he had cheated them and nonprofits out of it, and it was a real concern to me. What was really concerned to me, too, after he had lost re-election, continued to play in politics and raise money online. And I really wondered where that money went. Hopefully he gave that money back to the people that he cheated.
Do you believe in the strategy that Republicans should get more involved in local school board races?
I believe Republicans should get involved in all races. You want to have a competition of ideas. Education is the great equalizer. What we found going through the pandemic, we now have this lost learning of a whole generation of people who fell behind. What is our plan, not to just get you back in school, but to catch you up? I'm not worried about our kids competing against each other, but I'm worried about our kids competing with India and China. And I think parents should have a say in the kids' education. And it's real concerning to me that we got a DOJ that disagrees with that calls them terrorists. So I think, yeah, everybody should get involved and have a say in the process.
Going back to January 6th,
Mhm.
the perpetuation of this, election was stolen, or we know here in the United States that we probably have one of the most secure elections in the world, and this continued by the former president. It seems to be a narrative that's being pushed in other parts of the country, that there's been, fraud, and yet we've never been able to get down to the bottom of finding any fraud. Just how does that make you feel in terms of how the Republican Party is using that game plan?
Well, see, I see the Democrats are continuing to try to perpetuate something that you could have ordered on Amazon, your January 6th report a couple months ago. Why do they do it at night, have the hearings on late night and prime time? Why don't they have a hearing about inflation? Why don't they have a hearing, why doesn't America have baby formula? Why are we sending planes to Australia to get goat milk to feed our children? Why do Americans have to pay $5 a gallon of gas? Why do we deny the ability to be energy independent? Why do they continue to pass more wasteful spending instead of focusing the average American to help them work? Why did they take 1 month's salary when they were warned that they knew inflation would come? Why don't they do something about that? They have no plan to fix the problems we are in. But fortunately, Republicans do. We have a plan to lower your gas price. We have a plan to secure the border. We have a plan to make sure your streets are safe again. No longer will we defund the police. No longer will you be afraid to go into the store and people just ransack it. Well, your local pharmacy has to close because they could no longer make a profit because they're being robbed. No longer will you be afraid to go on the street that someone's going to punch you and they're not even going to get arrested. Because we'll make sure DAs uphold the law and we won't defund the police. We'll make your streets safe again. So it's not a message just to Republicans. It's a message to all Americans. The elections are also about timing. And I believe the time of where we live in America today is critical. It's critical about where these kids, their future will become. Will they have the opportunity that past generations had? I think this country is too great to waste it with ideas that the Democrats' liberal progression has been happening. I think give people some freedom. Let's give them some opportunity. And that's exactly what we'll do with the commitment to America.
Would you be willing to do a debate against your opponent?
Yeah, I do it every time. I do it every time.
How do you plan to force DAs to enforce the law?
That's a great question because, when you look at policing and others, it's a local and state issue. But when you study history and watch how are we able to raise the drinking age from 18 to 21? The federal government provides transportation money. So any state could have transportation money as long as their drinking age was 21. Lo and behold, states raised it. Now we provide billions of dollars in COP grants. We can continue to provide that to the city, but why don't we bring a transparency when it comes to prosecutors and DAs? Are they upholding the law? And we can set a criteria. You're welcome to have the COP grants, as long as, one, you're not defunding the police, and there's a certain level that your DA or prosecutor is upholding the law. Why in New York do you have this no cash bail that we watch time and again where somebody walked out, put somebody into a coma, never met, and wasn't arrested, but we watched what they had done to other people before? Why did we watch just in the valley 2 people in a car have more than 1 million pills of fentanyl and go out on no bail and never show up for their court case again, and didn't even get asked because of California law whether they were U.S. citizens or not? How many Americans died by the times they weren't caught of moving that fentanyl into our children? It is the #1 killer of Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. Republicans we will not be like the Democrats. We will not defund the police. We will not say there's no bail. We will not advocate for district attorneys who will not uphold the law. We believe it should be applied fairly to all, and we will secure our streets, and there should be consequences for actions taken.
All right, we gotta go, guys. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you greatly.